finally, the refereeing problems are being addressed after a season-long debacle of jail yard, prison ball, rugby, NFL football. It looked like offensive line versus defensive line. It looked like you was doing the Oklahoma drill in football practice in these WNBA.
Finally, after an entire season of watching players get brutalized, after coaches fined into oblivion for speaking truth, after injuries that never should have happened, the WNBA is actually addressing its officiating crisis, and this isn't some vague promise or PR spin. The new CBA includes specific language about referee accountability, transparency meetings 3 times per season, and educational videos that players will actually see. This is real structural change. But here's what you need to understand. This didn't happen because the league suddenly developed a conscience. This happened because the money got too big to ignore the problem anymore.
Caitlin Clark looked like she was out there on the yard going against a bunch of goons. I'm just being honest with you. The Connecticut Sun, Marina Mabry and them. Listen, man. Listen. It was ridiculous, the injuries. Think about all of the players we saw stepping up to the podium. We watched Gabby Williams pretty much in tears at the podium because of the refereeing and no foul calls being called. We watched Kelsey Plum at the podium pretty much in tears about the referees. Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White. We saw what happened to Nafisa Collier, and I pray to God y'all start calling some damn charging fouls on Alyssa Thomas for a change, okay?
Let's talk about what prison ball actually looked like in 2024. Caitlin Clark, the player who drove a 48% ratings increase, who sold out arenas in opposing cities, who brought casual fans into this league for the first time, averaged 3.2 free throw attempts per game. 3.2. Steph Curry, who plays a similar perimeter style, averages 4.7, and Curry isn't getting hip-checked mid-air or clotheslined on drives. The Connecticut Sun turned physical defense into performance art. Marina Mabray got grabbed, held, and redirected on every possession. Chennedy Carter's shoulder check on Clark in June became the symbol of everything wrong with officiating. A common foul called on a play that would have been a flagrant 2 in any other professional league.
The NFL, you are not Derrick Henry. You're not running up the middle, lowering your head and shoulder. Get some skill. Change these refs. We got a lot to get into, man. This is a big deal here. Here it says the WNBA CBA 10 biggest wins from the new CBA agreement, okay? And we're going to start here right where it matters. We're going to get right to the meat and potatoes. Number 8, more officiating dialogue and transparency, okay? Here it says every sport has officiating complaints. None like this, though. None like this. This is ridiculous.
September 25th, 2024. Minnesota Lynx versus Phoenix Mercury. Game 3 of the semifinals. Cheryl Reeve gets ejected, then walks into her post-game press conference and systematically dismantles the league's officiating credibility. She called out specific missed calls, questioned referee competence, and made it clear she didn't care about the fine coming her way. The league hit her with $15,000 and a 1-game suspension. Then Becky Hammon and Stephanie White each got $1,000 fines just for agreeing with her assessment. The WNBA tried to make an example out of Reeve. Instead, they proved her point, that speaking truth about officiating was more dangerous than the bad officiating itself. But here's the uncomfortable part. Where was this energy when Caitlin Clark spent 4 months getting destroyed?
Looked like it wasn't even safe. People might not even want their kids playing because of how rough this damn game was in this league the last year, or Caitlin Clark's rookie year especially, being butchered in the most flagrantly fouled player in the league. Absolutely ridiculous, okay? Here it says, in the postseason last year, the WNBA's officiating came under scrutiny when Minnesota Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve was ejected in Game 3 of the semifinals against the Phoenix Mercury. She then excoriated the league's officiating in her post-game news conference, drawing a suspension for Game 4 and a $15,000 fine.
October 8th, 2024. Nafisa Collier goes down with what initially looked like a routine collision, except it wasn't routine. Alyssa Thomas had lowered her shoulder and driven through Collier's planted leg like a fullback hitting the line. The replay showed Collier's ankle bend at an angle ankles aren't designed to bend. She missed the rest of the playoffs. That's when Cheryl Reeve found her voice about officiating. That's when the outrage became loud enough to matter. And look, I understand protecting your own player, but this exact style of play had been happening all season long. Kelsey Plum stood at a podium in tears, talking about the physical abuse her team endured. Gabby Williams broke down discussing non-calls that decided playoff games. The pattern was obvious to anyone paying attention. The difference? Those moments didn't involve a superstar on a championship-contending team getting hurt. Collier's injury finally made officiating a problem the league couldn't ignore.
Says this CBA doesn't bring any groundbreaking changes in officiating, but it does include that the union will be given access to any informational, educational, and point of emphasis videos regarding officiating, and it requires 3 meetings per season between the league and the union, specifically to review flagrant fouls and technical fouls. If nothing else, it should give the players more of a sense that their input on officiating is being heard. Okay, so we don't have any specific rules in black and white that are changing, but they are clearly in discussions with the players.
So what actually changed in the CBA? The language is careful but significant. The players' union gets access to all educational videos about officiating points of emphasis. That means when the league tells refs to watch for certain fouls, players see the same footage and examples the refs see. No more mystery about what's supposed to be called. 3 mandatory meetings per season between the league and union, specifically reviewing flagrant fouls and technical fouls, not just generic officiating discussions, targeted reviews of the calls that matter most for player safety and game integrity. But here's what's not in the CBA: specific rule changes. No new definitions of flagrant contact, no adjustments to how much physicality is allowed in the post versus the perimeter. The actual rules stay the same. What's changing is enforcement, how those existing rules get called, who's calling them, and whether players have any say in the process.
For Kelsey Plum to be at the podium in tears and not being able to play because the opposing team is being allowed to do UFC fighting moves. Dejanay Carrington snatching people out the air by ponytails and all types of nonsense. It seems as though the league is trying to move away from these things, and that starts with this dialogue from the players. Hey, what do you guys want? Where do you guys want physicality to be allowed? In the post? Is it around the basket? Beyond the half court line? Like, we got to figure this out. But it looks like that there are being changes made to the way these games are officiated, and that may include new referees. That may include new refs all around.
Think about the financial reality that forced this change. Caitlin Clark's rookie contract pays her $76,000. The Indiana Fever's average attendance jumped from 4,117 in 2023 to 16,841 in 2024. That's a 408% increase. State Farm Arena in Atlanta sold out to watch the Fever play the Dream, 17,728 people paying to see a road team. Now imagine Clark missing significant time because a defender decided to play linebacker instead of basketball. Imagine explaining to Nike, State Farm, and every other new sponsor why their investment is sitting on the bench with a separated shoulder. The league can't afford that exposure anymore. The money's too real now. That's why this officiating reform matters. Not because the WNBA suddenly cares more about player safety, they always should have, but because the financial consequences of bad officiating finally outweigh the institutional inertia of leaving things alone.
Definitely are putting more of an emphasis on more qualified referees as well. So that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, KTV was about to be refereeing a Fever game this year because you didn't need nothing to do it. All you need to go get your own shirt and you could have reffed the game. So it seems like the league is taking a step in the right direction in terms of getting proper referees, working with the players to make sure the game is officiated in a professional manner. Okay, we do not want to watch football unless there are helmets. That's why we love to watch the NFL. Okay, we want to see the skill in these players. Okay, Caitlin Clark shouldn't be getting a crap beaten out of her, but she's only shooting 3 and 4 free throws a game. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it appears that Cathy Engelbert has heard some of the complaints of these players, and Cheryl Reeve absolutely eviscerated her in the league for the way the games have been officiated. Now, although it is disappointing that it took it happening to her own player for it to happen, it's good that it actually happened in terms of her going off and saying what she had to say. because I think that lit a fire under everybody. And at the end of the day, this is what this league needed. We needed new referees since yesterday, okay? It's as simple as that. I think this is a great step in the right direction. I want you to get down in the comments, let me know what you guys think. This is Keep the Vision.
Here's what this means going forward. The 2025 season becomes the test case for whether these CBA provisions actually change anything on the court. Watch for 3 specific things. First, free throw attempts for perimeter players. If Caitlin Clark, Sabrina Ionescu, and Kelsey Plum are still averaging under 4 free throws per game while getting hit on drives, nothing has changed. The numbers will tell us if refs are actually calling contact differently. Second, flagrant foul rates. The 2024 season had fewer flagrant fouls called than 2023 despite being noticeably more physical. If that trend continues, these transparency meetings aren't working. Player safety requires refs to escalate common fouls to flagrants when contact is excessive. That's the whole point of the flagrant foul category. Third, coach and player fines for criticizing officiating. If we see the same pattern of $15,000 punishments for speaking honestly about bad calls, then the transparency provisions are performative. Real accountability means coaches can point out missed calls without getting financially penalized for doing their jobs. The Cheryl Reeve situation exposed something crucial. The league's officiating problem isn't just about missed calls. It's about a culture where acknowledging missed calls is treated as more dangerous than the missed calls themselves. That's backwards. And until speaking truth about officiating stops being a finable offense, players and coaches will keep swallowing their complaints while the product suffers. The financial incentives have finally aligned with what should have happened years ago. Caitlin Clark getting mauled every night isn't just bad for her, it's bad for business. Napheesa Collier missing playoff games because of a dangerous non-call isn't just unfair to Minnesota, it's bad for the league's credibility. When your stars can't stay healthy because refs won't protect them, you don't have a sport, you have a liability. This CBA doesn't fix everything, but it creates mechanisms for players to be heard, for patterns to be identified, and for the league to adjust before someone's career gets shortened by preventable contact. That's progress. Real measurable progress. The question now is whether the league follows through, whether those 3 mandatory meetings actually result in changed enforcement, whether educational videos translate to different calls on the court, whether transparency becomes real or just another bullet point in a press release. Because here's the thing about institutional change, it only works if the people in charge want it to work. The WNBA has the structure now, the CBA language is there, the financial pressure is real. But culture doesn't change because a document says it should. Culture changes when leadership decides that protecting players matters more than protecting refs from criticism. So watch the 2025 season closely. Watch how many times Caitlin Clark gets hit driving to the basket versus how many free throws she shoots. Watch whether Alyssa Thomas can still lower her shoulder and barrel through defenders without consequences. Watch if coaches feel safe pointing out missed calls that affect game outcomes. That's how we'll know if this officiating revolution is real or just another promise that dies in implementation. The structure exists now. Whether it actually changes anything depends entirely on whether the people running this league value player safety and competitive integrity more than they value avoiding uncomfortable conversations about their officials. The money says they should. The new TV deal, the expansion teams, the corporate sponsorships, all of it depends on stars staying healthy and games being decided by skill rather than who can get away with the most contact. Economic reality is a powerful motivator. Let's see if it's powerful enough to actually change how these games get called. Your turn. Do you believe this CBA language will actually result in different officiating, or is this just the league checking a box so they can say they addressed the problem? Drop your take in the comments, and if you've been watching this officiating disaster unfold all season, hit that subscribe button, because we're going to be tracking every single one of these changes when the 2025 season starts.